And we're live. Hey guys, welcome back to Whiskey Charlie, the War Game Chat, our monthly show on YouTube. It's been a while since our last one, but we're glad to be back. We've got a lot going on. I'm your host, Mo from Mo's Game Table, and joining me are my co-hosts, everyone's favorite Gimp with the Limp, the Gimpy Gamer, Nate Rogers. How's it going, Nate?
Doing great. Nice to be here. Nice to actually have the show back up and running again now that you've gotten moved into your new abode.
Yeah, it's been a week of Mondays for the past month and a half or 2 months. And we have the Wargaming Wizard from Oz, Kev Sharp from the Big Board. How's it going, Kev?
I'm good. Good. Glad to be here. Shut up.
And our special guest, Hermann Luttmann, the
Hello,
Herminator.
thank you for having me. Awesome.
Good
I
to
love
have you
your
back
intro
on
music,
again.
man. That really rocks.
There you go. Little rock music to get going, gets the heart
Yeah.
pumping and everything. But
Absolutely.
so first order of business, congrats on a most fearful sacrifice that is doing just gangbusters.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your support. It's done much better than we ever expected. Mark just told me today it's getting close to being done, out of stock. It's
Nice.
two left.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Surprised
it
it's
is.
not already sold out.
I know, right? So
It should be.
Yeah, but thank you everybody for the support. It's that was a labor of love. That was a long year of hard work, and by the whole team. I mean, Zeke, Claude, Steve, Fred, myself, Mark, everybody. Obviously, Mr. Barber. But that was a lot of work, and I'm glad people like it. I really am.
You know, one little note before we go any further with that was you were talking about Rick Barber and the map, and we were talking about it backstage about it a little bit. And it's something I wanted to mention to Nate and to other people who have the game. Make sure you put the map out and just don't put any pieces on it. Just look at the little details along the map. It is an absolutely beautiful map. And I mean that with all seriousness. When I looked at that prototype, I actually did spend a good 20 minutes just looking at all the small little details he adds in. He really put in a lot of effort into personalizing, giving a personal feel to that map. It wasn't just like, yeah, here's some field works and then here's this farmhouse. No, everything has a little bit of charm to it. Everything has a little bit of uniqueness to it. And I think that was one of the special things about Rick Barber.
Right, and he did that extra research. He walked the field. He did the research into what did it actually look like back then as opposed to now, and that map reflects his research into the actual layout of the battlefield at the time. So, great. I mean, it's, you know, there's a certain amount of karma that is his greatest work, in my opinion, that he's put out there, and we're just so happy and honored that we could present it that way. It's really too bad, but you know, if he had to do one map before he went, the ultimate Gettysburg map was what he would have wanted, right? So
I would say so, right? He was passionate about that.
Yeah, he was very passionate about that battlefield.
Yeah, well, it gets to live on in his memory in your game, and that's really fantastic. And you know, Mark, he doesn't go small. It's bigger, go bigger, go home with Mark Walker. That's for sure. Yeah. That is a big, hefty map, and I know, and it deserves it.
You don't have to tell Mark twice to let it rip. You know, out there.
True.
Well, it wouldn't look good if it were smaller. I mean, that map is about 4 times the size of an average war game map. You know, a simple like poster map. It's about 4 times the size of that. And with all the little details that are in there, the different ridges, the hills, the little buildings spread across, the buildings that some dumbass mistook for a town. Yeah. You know, none of that would stand out if it were smaller. You know, you really need to have that just big experience. Plus, I mean, I love monster games. I love having it all spread across. I wish I had the table space set the whole damn thing up. Even one just looks good. You know, the northern one is definitely my favorite, though, and it's got the town of Gettysburg right there in the center, just occupying that whole thing.
Yeah, and you know, the few people who didn't like his map style in the smaller footprint games, you should really look at this map, because once you blow that all out, it goes to another level. You know, the detail doesn't affect the gameplay; it actually enhances the gameplay.
Yeah. It's an artistic thing, I think. You know, thematically, it looks better at scale, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's easy to get up.
This is why Rick and I connected back back when we first got together. My very first design was Gettysburg the Wheatfield for Victory Point games. And we connected back then because I was coming from a miniatures background, and miniatures players we're all about immersion and theme, right? We're in it, right? So when I did that game, Rick was right there with me as far as eliciting that look out of the game. So that's why you'll see a lot of my games have, figures on the counters. That goes all back to my miniatures days. That's even all the detail in A Most Fearful Sacrifice, all the little nerdy additive uniform details and flag details and the mascot dogs and all that kind of stuff. That's there because it's there, because I wanted it to be there. It wanted to look like a miniatures game, and to a certain extent.
Well, don't say those days are behind you. I mean, you still dabble in miniatures, don't you? Or have you given up?
I have my miniatures. There's a little thing on my wall right there that has the last of my miniatures collection behind glass, just displayed.
Wow.
Traitor.
I think my painting days are over. I used to get up at 4:00 in the morning and paint before I went to work. That's how bad it was.
That's hardcore.
Dude,
That's hardcore.
That's my relaxation. Like when the evening's done, the kids are in bed, the wife shut up, it's like, okay, this is my paint time. I sit at my little desk and I paint whatever little bit I get into,
And the great thing about that too is when you're studying, like when I was doing Napoleon, I did 15 millimeter Napoleonics. You just learn so much. You get in that period. You're in there researching what the cuff colors are for all these guys, and that's the wrong flag that regiment had. You're in there. And I do appreciate it about, that part of the hobby.
How can you do that? All right. I just decided to poke around at black powder a little bit. And it's the set that deals with the Civil War. It's got the Union Confederates, and it's got those little 15 mil guys, right. The size I'm talking about.
They're on a strip, right?
Stands.
Yeah. How the hell are you talking about cuffs? I can barely see the rifles on those things. What the hell are you talking about, cuffs?
Well, I've said this before, but in that cabinet over there are
optivisors,
6 millimeter Prussian grenadiers with mustaches. So
wow,
I know.
6 mil with mustaches.
Yeah.
You definitely were using optivisors. I mean, that is what everybody should be using anyway when you paint.
But that was actually back in the day when I could actually see.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I was going to say that explains the player aids and A Most Fearful Sacrifice.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, dude. I'm never going to stop giving you crap over that. I'm sorry. Okay. I wouldn't rib you if I didn't like it.
Well, as everybody probably knows by now, they weren't supposed to come out on 8.5 by 11 paper. So, but they did, and we'll get it fixed with the next batch.
Jason's got an important question here. What style of micro mustache to paint on each 15 millimeter figure?
A handlebar, of course.
Exactly.
Waxed or unwaxed.
Yeah. So, Kev, how you feeling? I know you're a little uncomfortable right now. You're not feeling too good. A little under the weather.
Yeah, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm here for a while until I'm not comfortable, and then I'll be off.
Well, I got a story might make you feel a little bit better. I did not know about a month ago. I just experienced sudden hearing loss in my right ear, and I was just like, "What the hell?" I mean, I thought it was like swimmer's ear. I must have got water in my ear from the shower. Oh, it'll go away. Well, it didn't for like 2 weeks. And I says, I got to go into an ENT. So I go in there and he says, oh yeah, you have that's sudden sensorial hearing loss or something like that. It's SSHL. And I'm like, okay, how'd that happen? They said there's a virus that will attack the nerve inside the ear and it'll just kind of clamp down on it. And that's causes damage. So I had low end hearing loss, high end hearing loss. They said the high end hearing loss is in both ears. So that was probably long-term anyway from loud noise exposure and stuff. And I was like, okay, but the low hearing was bad. And on top of that, I had really bad echoing and swirling in my right ear. Yeah. So they said, okay, what we can do is we can get you on high dose prednisone treatment, 60 milligrams a day for 3 days, then 40 for 3, then 20 for 3, then 10, all the way down, step down. So I did that. Went in yesterday and they says, oh, you have a 50% increase. You know, it's gone back up 50%. I was like, okay, great. And I'm like, okay, so we can do one more thing. I was like, okay, steroid shots. I'm like, well, I just took all these steroids. Okay, you're going to give me a shot in the ass of steroids. Okay. And they're like, no, we're going to stick it in your ear. And I was like, they can do steroid shots in the ear? So I was like, okay, you know, and they go in there and they had me lay on my side. They take this like swab, and they go into your ear with this numbing agent that basically just burns off the nerves in the nerve drum or the eardrum, like around it, like these really small nerves. So it deadens it. And then when they deaden it, then they take a needle and they stick it through your eardrum, and then they inject the steroids into the ear canal inside. And it was one of the weirdest sensations ever, because I'm like, it was cool and it felt cold, burning. And it almost felt like for a moment there, I had like a momentary sense like I was drowning, because it's like all connected, nasal, everything's connected.
Oh, wow.
So you feel that pressure. You think, oh, wow, I'm going to drown. And it goes away just as fast as it happens. But then I just slammed a 5th in 5 seconds thing happens, and the room just starts spinning, like almost immediately. You get vertigo. And I was just like, okay, that's kind of trippy. He's like, you okay? You're not saying anything. I'm like, well, what am I going to say? I'm just laying here while you stick a needle in my ear, I said, no, I'm okay. So I lay there for 20 minutes, and then I got back up, and they said, this will actually give it better chance of healing even more. So maybe I'll get some more success where I don't have the ringing. The ringing is gone, which is good. Right. But I still have some of the echo, and the echo and the swirling is weird, because it almost sounds like every time I hear someone talk in a room with earphones on, it's good. But when I hear someone talk in a room, it sounds like the Charlie Brown teacher, that won't, won't, won't sound as I'm hearing the voice. So it's terribly annoying depending on the acoustics of the room. So that was
worse on that right side, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all on the right ear.
Yeah.
The left ear is fine. It's the right ear. So I was like, I never knew you can get steroid shots in the ear. And this is the first of 4. So I got to go back every week now for the next few weeks to get another one.
That's funky.
Oh,
wait,
that is funky.
Did I tell you about when I went to the ear doctor at the VA, and they were doing the same type stuff, testing and all that bull crap? Mm-hmm. And I walk in there, and there's a cute little nurse doctor who's getting ready to administer the exam, and she's like, "Okay, Mr. Rogers, we need you to take a go over here." And I'm like, "Wait, excuse me?" And I'm looking at nice hearing impaired. She was hearing deaf, like the big ass damn ear, the hearing aids on, and I'm like, okay. She can't hear worth a damn, and she's going to tell me like how bad my hearing loss is. I'm like, something doesn't compute. That's like a blind eye doctor trying to give me an eye exam. This just isn't going to fly out. And by the time it's done, they were determining a similar thing. Most of the hearing loss is on the right side. That's where the bomb was, and the side I shot on. And she's almost giving me dirty looks because I can still hear out of that ear. So it's kind of like my hearing wasn't as bad as hers. So she's like, "What are you doing here?" type shit. And I'm like, okay, I'll see you later. Thanks. Have a good day. I'm not insulting her. She did a perfectly fine job. She did her job professionally. It just didn't inspire what I would call confidence to have a deaf person doing the hearing test. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is kind of funky, isn't it?
I thought that would make you feel a little better, Kev.
That was probably,
I had a needle stuck in my ear.
It feels worse now.
That was probably TMI. That goes into the TMI bucket for me. But thanks for sharing.
I thought that was cool. I mean, I had never known that you can get an injection in the ear until yesterday. So I was like, well, learn something new every day. Best way to learn it is experiencing it. So
yeah, sounds
trippy.
Some things that you can just tell us about. We don't necessarily need to try it out ourselves.
No, I don't recommend it.
Don't do this at home, kids.
Don't do this at home at all. No.
I'm happy to vicarious through you. Although I'm betting Hermann Luttmann wasn't expecting the hearing stories, the nice gross needle in the ear stories.
I expect everything on this show.
So a most fearful sacrifice. You also were at a convention recently. I believe.
Origin. Yes.
You were at Origins. And let me see here if I can share a little bit of a.
That's in your neck of the woods, Columbus, right? Where are you?
We're in Texas.
Oh, you're in Texas. Who's in Columbus?
That would be Ardwolf.
Ardwolf, right.
So there is you, Mr. Walker.
Yep. And it's Mr. Thompson. Baseball cap.
David Thompson, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's David on the right.
And then I don't know why, but the first thing I was like, man, that dude back here kind of looks like me in a way almost. If I didn't have a beard and I was a little heavier, but
yeah, that was the first time I met David. We've talked online, obviously on Facebook and stuff, but he was a great guy, man. We had so much fun just talking shop at lunch. That was great.
Nice, nice.
Ultimate Kevin Bertram from the Tripoli game, and Art Wolf was there playing Europa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was running that, wasn't he?
Well, he was one of the main guys playing. He was deep into it. He's a great guy too.
And then we got some action shots here. This is Volters.
Yeah, this is Volters Lead the Way. This should be out by White Dog Games very soon. Obviously, this is the tabletop simulator screenshot, as most people can tell. So this is basically in magnificent style in space. It takes place, this map is the moon map. There's also a map for the Mars map. And you are taking these space rangers, the Volters there, and trying to keep these aliens from blowing up either the moon or Mars, wherever the scenario is taking place. And because White Dog doesn't supply dice with their games, I changed the mechanics. And so you'll see those cards over there. They actually drive the action. So instead of rolling dice and pushing your luck, you're actually pulling cards and pushing your luck. So this should be ready in a week or so.
Speaking of cards, there's one there.
Yeah. So the cards, again, I'm finding a lot of use for cards, obviously, in my later designs. They just solve so many problems. So on this one card are the movement instructions for the 3 different types of ranger units, either the scouts, the rangers, or the heavy weapons unit. It also gives you the 2 events. One is a Volter event, and the other one's the Firmician event. The Firmicians are the aliens. And it also gives you a random number. That's the yellow number on the bottom. So you use these cards constantly to generate all that information.
I like that. If the dice are not going to be there, finding another way to substitute that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I like it.
Right. And it actually adds a little more strategy to the game because you can pick the unit you're going to move after seeing the instructions. So it adds a little bit more input by the player than the normal, dice rolling mechanic that I had.
Yeah, you're not stuck to, oh crap, I got a bad card pull. You can actually mitigate that with some decision making, which
right
is cool.
Until you get to the last of the 3 units, and then you just got to take whatever comes up.
Yeah, then you're kind of just, hey, this is the last 100 yards, so to speak, as a little steal from Mike Denson. But this is where you got to make the big push. So you just got to take what you get.
Right.
And we have another game coming here, Conquering the Valley.
So we have a new Civil War series coming out from Tiny Battle called Shattered Union. Mark asked me if I could do a small footprint ACW series, and I of course said yes. And these are all battles that are lightly covered in the gaming world, or covered not so well, or so this particular map is Conquering the Valley. This is Cross Key. This is actually Claude Whalen's going to be doing this game. So this is a sample map. A sample of the map that's going to be in the game. All the games in the series are going to have the same 12-page basic set of rules. All the games are going to follow the same rules regardless of scale, and the maps are all going to be this size. So everything's going to be pretty consistent throughout the series. If you learn one game, you'll know them all.
And Fango is asking, how's it different than Blind Swords?
Well, it's a lot simpler than Blind Swords. It has the same. So all these systems that are kind of offshoots of Blind Swords, whether it's the Most Fearful Sacrifice or this series, in that the basics of Blind Swords are in there, where you're generating not chit pull, but in this case card pull, and you're committing to orders, and you're getting random events in amongst your activations. All that's still there. This just has a change of scales. It's a lot simpler. It's a little bit more streamlined. There's not as many units.
So what scale is it?
Well, it's interesting. This game, so the game I'm doing, this game is Claude's game. This is actually going to be regimental. So each unit in this is going to be a regiment. So he's got Cross Keys and he's got Port Republic, which is both are going to be in this set. My game, the Champion Hill game, is actually, they're going to be demi-brigades. Or could be 2-3 units per brigade, similar to the way I did Most Fearful Sacrifice. I'm going to be doing a game on Fredericksburg where each unit's probably going to be a brigade. And then we're also going to have like Brandy Station, which might be companies. So every game is going to be a little bit different as far as scale presentation. So they'll not feel the same, even though they use the same system. The interesting thing about Cross Keys and Port Republic, Claude was actually, he took a guided tour of the battlefield from a local resident and gamer. And he discovered just by being on the battlefield little ridges and little humps in the terrain that he incorporated into the maps. Terrain that was significant at the battle that might not be apparent if you're just looking at a regular Google map or something like that. Mm-hmm. So he actually walked the field, and he's got a lot of nuances on these two battlefields that influenced the battle.
That's one of the things I like Jay Kirkpatrick did with Scream Aim Fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty, it's pretty streamlined, pretty straightforward game, very easy to play, a lot of fun, maddeningly difficult to win at times, which is what the appeal is, to play just one more time. And one of the things I like is, even though you may have your unit in 3 hexes away or whatever, 3 hexes generally the range you're going to shoot at, 2-3 hexes away, even if it's clear, you got to pull a cover card out to see what the ground cover is like for the German when you're shooting as the American against the German, like solitaire driven. And it kind of does what you're saying. Even though it's clear terrain, there's undulations in the terrain that could make it difficult to hit. So you get a +1 or something like that on their defense. I think that's kind of neat. Sometimes you get a 0, sometimes you get a 1. It depends.
Well, yeah, and that's an idea I've had even all the way back to At Any Cost, because von Bredow's Death Ride, the famous Prussian cuirassier charge of the French guns at Mars-la-Tour, a lot of people are like, well, how did they pull that off? That's impossible. Well, when you read about the charge, von Bredow found a very shallow indentation in the land, and he was actually able to approach the French guns behind this tiny little ridge line and just kind of bolted out at them, and that's how he pulled it off. So I had to like how do you incorporate that in a war game where your hexes are 500 yards or something? And the way you do that is you have these a lot of the random events or things that happen within hex that actually, if you look at Most Fearful Sacrifice, you'll see on the event chart in the back, the combat event chart, that that takes into incorporation that you might find a stone wall or a fence or special cover, all that stuff that you can't represent in a hex, but is there. So yeah, I mean, that kind of aspect in the game has got to be there if you want to get some of these, get a good historical representation of what happened at the battle.
So Tim was asking, have you picked the next Black Swan system battle?
Yeah, I just talked to Mark about that this morning as well. It looks like it's going to be Chickamauga. The fact that I only live an hour and a half away from the battlefield now is a big plus in its favor.
And Just Guard's asking, speaking of At Any Cost, I just played it for the first time a few months ago at GMT and really enjoyed it. Any chance that Blind Swords Black Swan will return to the Franco-Prussian War?
Funny you should ask me that question. I actually had an email exchange with Gene Billingsley at GMT, and I was actually asking him, are you going to reprint At Any Cost? And he goes, yeah, it's just, we're holding back on some of the reprints, and it will be done eventually. What do you want to do to help us promote the reprint? I suggested, well, how about some more Franco-Prussian War battles, but we'll do like 3 in a pack. We'll do Spickern and Froschwiller and Weisenberg, or maybe even 4. And he loved that idea. So it looks like we might take the At Any Cost system and do 3 or 4 smaller battles in one box.
Nice. And Jason's asking, have you ever thought about using a variant of your system on the American Revolution?
Yeah, I've thought of it. I've got a lot of people are asking me to do it for the Napoleonic Wars, which is a huge undertaking. But I think at some point, I'm going to have to do it.
Nice. Then we have the Hill of Death, Champion Hill here.
Right. So this is my game coming out probably in July. Well, actually, that's very soon, isn't it?
Yeah, just in a week, a few days.
Yeah. So this is Champion Hill. So this is the battle, as most of you may or may not know. There's the battle right before the gates of Vicksburg, where Grant beat Pemberton, and then besieged Vicksburg, which many will tell you was the turning point of the Civil War, was the fall of Vicksburg. So this is one of these battles, again, I think there are only 2 games I found on this battle, 2 war games maybe. And I said to myself, I said, this battle is such an important battle in history. It's got to have some more representation. So I thought it would be a great game to start off the series with. And Fred and I have been playing it a lot, and it's a fun game. It really is. It goes back and forth. It's vicious, and it's a good one to start off the series with.
Nice.
So will that be the first for the new series then?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's the box cover there.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah, and all the games in the series will have that style of box cover. Claude's game is called Conquering the Valley. The Fredericksburg game is probably going to be called Clear the Way, which was the Irish Brigade. And then the 4th game, originally we were going to have Brandy Station, but Dale Gutt was going to do that game, but he's had some personal issues come up, so we had to push him off. So Claude is probably going to do Meat Attacks, which is going to be a what-if game on the 4th day of Gettysburg. At one of these games. Basically, Meade trying to destroy the Army of Northern Virginia after the Battle of Gettysburg.
Nice. And then we have the next one from White Dog Games, Volters Lead the Way, Battles of the 324th Volter Regiment.
Yeah, you know why it's the 324th Volter Regiment, right?
Why is that?
Because my birthday's on 324.
Nice.
Nice. So this is the in space, in magnificent style game coming out probably. Well, I have the prototype being mailed to me now. So Blue Panther's sending me the prototype to look over, and if it gets okayed, I assume it's going to go into production within a week or so, I guess. Something
Nice.
like that.
Well, definitely want to know when that goes into production, because I want to get a hold of a copy of that. That is definitely pretty cool. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Mark wanted me to mention he's also got something else coming out through Tiny Battle that people may be interested in. It's a game called Stout Hearts by Jay Ward. He's the guy who designed the Ramadi solitaire game and the Way solitaire game.
Yeah.
So Stout Hearts is the story of one of the British brigades, I think, at D-Day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that'll be coming out pretty soon too. I think it's coming out.
Tiny Battle. Is that Tiny Battles?
Yeah. And it's going to come out, I think, within a week of the Champion Hill game.
Nice.
How much do those Tiny Battle games usually run? Isn't it about like 40 or so?
25,
50?
30.
Is it that little?
Yeah, 25 to 30, 35, somewhere.
I think the folios are 25.
Yeah.
The box games, I think, are 40.
Box games will be 40,
Yeah, because it's the Blue Panther box, right?
No.
Is that Blue Panther? No, it's a different company.
It's going to be like the D-Day and Beyond box, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those were nice. Those were real nice.
Similar counters.
I believe so. Mark is looking into other options on the counters.
Okay.
Yeah,
just curious.
Yeah.
Shipping cost eating them alive.
It's eating everybody alive right now. I think.
That's a big issue, obviously.
Yeah. I think it's a U.S. producer, so it's not that bad, but still.
Yeah.
So with Volters, that will lead into the primary part of the discussion, which is inspired by Jester, who's watching tonight.
Yes.
Who said that there should never be mistakes in war games. And on his show, you were talking on his show about your game Volters, and then you put out the call for anybody who wanted to help out. And you just, took any volunteers that wanted to go over the files and make sure that they caught anything, and talk about it from there. You can talk about it, how many people got involved and what you picked up from what the feedback was, things like that, and then we can go from there.
Well, his crew there that follows his show, we're actually very responsive. Hey, there's Fred.
Yeah, your developer.
My developer for many years.
There you go.
Yeah, his crew are actually very responsive. And obviously, if you get 12 people telling you they want to help out and you send out all the files and everything, you're probably going to get 3 to 6 people that respond seriously. Others will say, yeah, I'll look at it. And they might give you, hey, yeah, I read it over. It looks great type of response. His particular group did really well, including yourself, that really edited a lot of stuff, gave me good feedback. I don't know if people have ever tried to write a set of rules and,
It's
it
an
takes
education.
a lot of time to make sure that it's understood by third parties. In your brain, when you write something down, you know what you mean. And sometimes, when people read it back to you and interpret it as a different way, it surprises you sometimes, honestly. So, I mean, I think I've gotten better over the years, at least if, trying to catch that sooner. Grammatical errors get made as you pointed out,
That happens,
things like that. And, but so, yeah, his group responded nicely. There were I think 3 people that really contributed heavily into getting the game shipshape.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think people don't give, designers or creators of games enough credit on it, but it is a hugely difficult process to take what and put it down in written form so someone can pick it up and learn all that information that you're trying to impart to them, even in a simple game, 20-page rule book. There's a lot of difficulty in crafting the right words to get that across to someone.
Yeah.
Well, here's something I want to jump in here real quick.
To defend Jester a little bit. I think what his point is. By the way, I hope you're feeling okay, Kirk. It's good to see you back at it. I think he's probably talking about companies that just throw games out there, and then there's all these obvious errors of everything, right? I mean, right? I don't think he's talking about the nitpicky stuff. I hope, because.
Well, he's saying no errata, so that means even nitpicky stuff. Now, I know Kev is in the process of checking out and play testing Course in Pocket 2. Mm-hmm. And you've had some interesting back and forth with the designer on that, where you'll give some feedback, and then, as you would say, he'd give you a dissertation, and then you'd say, okay, fine, whatever, and then he would say, okay, I'll change it. But there's some back and forth there, and sure. You kind of run up against a brick wall there. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think, well, look, when someone's been doing something for a long time and they've been doing it in a certain way, there's a tendency just to want to stick with the way that they write or the way that they communicate. And so, and that, or it's a character trait or it's a habit. So when and there's a tendency to fall back on, he has a couple of rules in there that, they're like rule 1.1, don't be a schmuck, right? So if you're trying to do gamey things, don't be a schmuck. Well, that can be a crutch, and it has ended up in some rules instances being a crutch, where I've said, well, I can go do this then with the combination of the rules. And he goes, well, no, go read 1.1. Well, no, your rules say I can do that. So, don't be gamey. You can't just say don't be gamey. Right, you've got to think about how people are going to interpret the rules and read the rules and use the rules. And then one of the other comments he made that was really interesting to me was that, hey, no matter how I write the rule, generally speaking, I'm going to get a question and people aren't going to understand it. And that also felt to me that, it's version 2. I'm taking version 1. It's being retyped, and I'm fixing up the supply rules that were broken or nasty or complicated or not useful, but the game is basically the same, and everyone was relatively happy with it, so why change anything? So along comes me. I've never played Course on Pocket 1. I can barely say the word, let alone having played the game, and don't know anything really very much about the battle, although I've played some titles that are related to the particular battle. So okay, how can the Soviets win? How can the Germans win? And within the specific scenario that I was testing. So I just think that it's very hard for the designer to anticipate every level of, intelligence, let alone comprehension. No, because look, let's face it, there's some really, really, really smart people that play games, and they work out the rules really quickly, and they work out either how to break the game, or they learn the game faster than their opponent. And there's also a bunch of people that are really pretty stupid that need to have their hand held to get through the whole exercise, right?
Stop picking on me, man.
I just look, crayons are us, right?
Hey,
so,
I love my crayons.
Yeah, so I just think you've got to find that balancing point of taking feedback without changing the core mechanics and making the game more accessible, particularly if you want to get to a pre-order number, right? And then how do you deliver that in a package that is consumable for people? I'm a big fan of the rules being consumable, the charts being readable and accessible, and the map being accessible. You use the whole usability, the whole customer experience thing really matters, right? Because it's otherwise people pack it up and go, oh yeah, screw this, I'm done. And then you've lost a second sale because they're not going to refer you, and they're not going to buy any more of your games.
Right.
So that was sort of my experience. Now he's been very gracious and communicated in depth about why things are the way they are. And my point has always been, yeah, but your rule says this. It's so what does how do you I don't know how you fix that, because I'm not a rule writer. I'm not a play tester. I wasn't taking it to be play tested, but I found a lot of errors that have been fixed with maps and setup charts and things. So that's all good. That's just by the by. But the rule wording, I don't know how you guys do it. So Hermann, like your rules for your system in general, the blind sword system, that's matured over time, right? It's become much, much clearer and crisper and cleaner.
Yes, and I credit Roger Miller over at Revolution doing a lot of work on that, and because the first version of that Stonewall Sword, that, as you said, that's evolved as you go, and he codified everything in the new, the second wave, I guess you'd call it, the blind sword. Now have the series rules and the. I mean, obviously we wouldn't do that at the beginning because we didn't know if it was going to take.
Be a series,
Sure.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was hoping. Obviously, I was hoping.
So what's acceptable errata then? I mean, that's probably the key question. And we're talking about errata. So what's acceptable?
That's a good question for the audience to chime in on while
you
guys answer that one.
Well, like for Most Fearful Sacrifice, I mean, that is just a voluminous. That was a year's worth of work with, I mean, thousands upon thousands of entries and data points and all that. Fred mentions this a lot, and it's true. Now, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people about about a couple typos, a unit name maybe being incorrect. I mean, it's just no way I can avoid that. I mean, and with the campaign rules, so the two scenarios at the end, the 3-day campaign game, I had to come up with the overnight rules. So now this is after months and months of designing, and I have to come up with these overnight rules for the 3 days. And I'm like, at this point, I'm burned out, right? I mean, like you had to see the process we were going through it. After I got the system going and when I was designing it, I don't think guys, I don't know, maybe you do realize, but designing the system is one thing. Then designing all the scenarios is a whole nother thing, right? Now you're in a different mode now, because now each scenario only almost becomes its own little game too, right? So for Most Fearful Sacrifice, each scenario even has its own little subset of rules that have to go with that scenario. So after I got the basic system going, where Fred and I had it going, and Claude and I had it going, and all the guys were playing it. Now I'm just designing scenarios and sending them off to the playtest team to try, right? I'm just sitting here with all my books going, okay, this scenario is the one I'm going to work on next. So I sit here, I type it all up, and I work on it, I send it off, they play it. So by the time I got to the 3-day part, I'm like toast, right? So I said, oh my God, how am I going to do the overnight? So I go, oh, I did that at any cost. So I went to my at any cost game and I took the rules from, because people like the overnight rules with the bivouac and all that from that. And I said, all right, I'm just going to put it in this game. Well, unfortunately, I put them in there. They worked fine. except I forgot that I had to mention what the movement rate is at night. It was inherently a maneuver order, but I never wrote it down. So somebody asked me that question. I go, oh God, I missed that. I forgot to put it in there. And all the playtest team was just naturally doing a maneuver order, but you got to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I forgot to mention what happens to the artillery brigades at night, because the rules mention divisions, but I didn't have artillery brigades and at any cost, so I forgot to write that in there. So there are things that, look, bottom line on Errata, it's ultimately my fault, right? I mean, I take responsibility for it,
Right.
but you know,
Well, it's not just you; it's the project lead. It's in some instances. Oh, we got another member of the Whiskey Charlie crew on board, just passing through. But it depends on what your development team is. You know, if it's just you, if you're managing it with a developer, or if you actually have a project team, then that really does fall on the project leader. But
yeah,
the project leader can't watch every step of the way, because, like Fred mentioned earlier, it could actually, the errata does happen after it's out of the designer's hand, because the production, portion of games, people don't understand how many pieces are involved and how many steps are involved and how many hands get in there. And the issue can happen with layout and artist. It can happen in production in China or the US, wherever it's being done. Changes happen.
And that's one of the great fears is, I forgot who said it on one of the other broadcasts. I think it was on the War Room, but I remember the designer saying, who was it? Was it Jerry White or somebody? The most feared time is when you get that production copy, right? And you have it in front of you, you're going to open it. And I go through the exact same process. I said, I'm going to open this box, and the first thing I look at is going to be totally wrong.
It's going to be wrong. Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah.
It is a great fear. It really is. Because
Well, look at Pacific War.
I cannot tell you how many times like files have gotten missed, in the interchange. And this happens a lot, is you do a last minute change, like you go, oh, wait a minute, this mechanic should work better this way, and I'm going to change this, this, and this. And you send it off and it never gets in there, or it gets in there, but you forgot to change the example of play on page 4 for this new rule. So now your example of play is wrong. So, I mean, there's just so
Or you make your changes, you send it in, the layout guy, you give them Rev 6. They do Rev 6, they send it back Rev 7. You look at it and you're like, okay, you've got 9 out of my 15 edits in here. You didn't add the other ones. Why didn't you edit? So you send it back. Now it's Rev 8. You get it back and you're like, okay, you screwed up the first 3 of the first 9 that you had right. And now you've got you've got 4 of the last 6 that you had. It's and you're playing this catch-up game. And then by the time it gets done, there's 2 or 3 errors that don't get ironed out, or they get new ones that get introduced. So there's a lot more to it.
Right. And with every company except maybe like GMT or some, maybe, I don't know with the other ones, but, you're talking, even with the great development team I have, it's only 4 other guys, right? And they've been doing this all along with me. So at some point when you're adding new stuff or you're designing scenarios, they're kind of going on automatic also, right? So they might miss a change. Like I said, they knew that they were going to do maneuver order at night. So they're just doing it without realizing they have to go look for the rule. Right. So,
but I mean, there's a good point in the comments here about versioning software though, right? I mean, I think there's, the wargaming industry, the military history industry is pretty much a cottage industry, right? So it's kind of, like you're saying, it's 4 guys and a dog trying to work it out together. And so I think it lends itself to being error prone, because you're not all using versioning software tools, or you're not checking you're not numbering things correctly. I can't even number vassal files correctly, let alone when I'm playing by email, let alone make sure that you get all the versioning done for game production. So I certainly empathize. I think,
and GMT, one thing that GMT's done, even since my at any cost days with the Plum Island Horror, they've got guys now that are doing that. So Jason Carr and Ken Kuhn, those guys are only in charge of doing what you said, that whole play testing, rallying, and the versioning. So when we did Plum Island Horror and we went into play testing, I mean, I've never been through something like this. I'm talking about like 60 play testers, 80 play testers sending me all sorts of feedback constantly all day long. When you're in that environment, you're going to weed out a lot of this stuff because you got multiple people contributing all sorts of things, and one guy will notice something that 18 other guys missed.
Yeah,
So,
but that's what you need, right?
Right.
I think too many
Exactly right.
publishers try to keep so much of it
But
in-house.
my point is, not everybody's GMT, so they can't afford to do that with all the,
Yeah, they can't
How
afford
many-
it.
How many people would volunteer though, right? There's enough
Not
out
a
there.
lot.
You might not get 80, but they could put it out there in a number of hands. You could get 10, 20 guys to take a look at something.
You'd be surprised if you can get 10 or 20 play testers.
Yeah. Look,
And 10 or
everyone's-
20 that'll give you feedback.
Everyone puts their hand up for this sort of stuff. When TCS was doing one of their modules, I forget which one it was. They sent me in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I had 3 versions of the rules, and of course, I'm printing them out because I want to underline them and make sure I know what's going on. And by the third time I printed the third set of rules out, I sent them a note and said, "Look, I'm out." When you've got a stable set of rules, that's when I can be probably of more value, because you're making changes on the fly about the gun firing capacity of some AT gun, and were there 4 of them or 3 of them in a platoon? It's like all this sort of stuff. I was like, I don't have any of that information.
And you may never have even played that portion of a scenario yet to even have any feedback to give, to even realize if that's impactful.
Yeah, right. So the last thing you want to do is go down to me, it was a complete waste of time for me to even move a piece, because you're going to change the rules tomorrow. So why should I bother? So
that's alpha testing. That's like alpha level.
No, that's
testing.
beta.
Yeah, that's probably you're probably right, but still, Herman's, you got to keep in mind that I don't know one company other than GMT that's got more than 5 employees, full time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
MMP doesn't. I'd be surprised if DVG does.
No, they've got like 4 or 5.
4 or 5 full-time employees, right? That includes the owners, though, right?
Well, actually, it's probably less now because Sarah left. So what? They got Kev, the customer service chick that took over, and like one other.
Yeah, she loves being called a chick, by the way. But the
customer service chick.
but you see, and none of those people are going to be play testers, right? So it's really incumbent upon the designer. Like, I'm sure Mark has played with you, Herman.
Yeah.
Sure, but he loves playing. But I know there are other game publishers where the owners don't play, right? They don't care. They're really not into the games, and they don't want other people to solve the problems. So
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I guess you get more people, so I'm sure GMT, when they put a coin game out, probably get 200.
Oh, sure.
Right.
It's got a population, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's also a series game, and you know how to play one, you can play any of them. So that
Right.
does help.
Yeah, the playtest crew for established series like that is probably, is enormous compared to a one-off.
Right.
Well, they probably need to think of their playtesters in a certain level of caliber, right? Regular playtesters, and then you're going to go, once you've got a more finalized version of the rule book, to someone like Kev and have him take a look at it versus having him take a look at version 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, when you've got that 1.0 pretty well finalized, have a more professional player take a look at it before you send it on. That would be a better bet, because you can not waste that person's time.
Yeah, and that's one of the things right there. Beta testing requires actual dedication to helping create useful reports. That's something that, Ed, sounds like you've actually done software beta testing, because that's something that anybody's ever done beta testing on video games.
Right.
You have to fill out reports, and it's definitely far more involved than it is for just a board, war game.
And the thing is, playtesters and developers, they don't want to put in that much time because they realize they're doing this for free, right? Right. If you're doing really good feedback, you might get a free copy of the game, but not all companies can afford to do that either. So in a lot of cases, playtesting is just gratis work, right? Other than a thank you, and a mention in the credits. Yep. And then the other part of it is So let's say if I use the Plum Island Horror as an example, it's in the art department now for GMT, which thankfully, it passed the 1,000 pre-order mark, and once it passes 1,000, they actually push it a little bit because they've got mega interest in it. But so now it's playtesting. So now it's going to go through all his artworks, and now I asked Ken. I actually texted him the other day. I said, "Well, we got to playtest this again now, right? Because you do have to test it with the final art." Because you got to see if the final art works.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to see if it looks right, if everything is clear, if the values are correct, if it's a different game now. You're not doing the playtest components that you were used to. Now you're doing the final components. So there's another round of testing that really should be done. And hopefully it'll get done. It'll get done faster, obviously, but it's still another level that's got to be out there.
Well, my Kev had brought up something earlier. He mentioned about Pacific War, and there was we had Mark on a while back because he had reached out to me and says, "Hey, I want to talk about this," because he was getting a lot of grief over the issues with Pacific War. Now, they weren't game breaking. They did have there were issues with counters. There were some issues with errata in the rules, but in fairness, it's also a huge game. So there has to be an expectation, an understanding from people that something that big is not going to be flawless. I don't care who, unless you want it to be in development for 10 years, there's going to be issues. And even over the course of 10 years, how many people are going to come and go out of the project, and that can introduce more problems as well. So,
right. And I'm upfront about that as far as Most Fearful Sacrifice. How many times could our crew test the 3 days of Gettysburg scenario?
True.
It would take us years to go through it as often as we should, right?
Yeah. And what was the one piece of errata that came out of that game that drove you the most nuts? The charts.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that happens.
It's look. I mean, I love doing this. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun to do, and it keeps me busy while being retired too. So it keeps me out of trouble. It's rewarding in so many other different ways other than commissions and all that. I mean, every designer, we don't make any money really at this thing. We got enough to make maybe go out for a nice dinner or something like that.
You might want to close the window then, because we could see your Lamborghini through the window. So.
I mean, you look at the sales figures for some of these other games. They dwarf what we can do. Dawn of the Zeds, I've said this many times, but Dawn of the Zeds in sales is 10 times all my war games added together.
Mm-hmm. If I could
it's
design
a more
one
run-of-the-mill
game,
general game.
It is.
Yeah, but if I could have designed one game and gotten, say, $1, per game, Ticket to Ride is a game I wish I had sold.
Yes, I know.
7 million copies
of
that damn game.
Yeah,
it's like, I'd take that to the bank in a heartbeat. $7 million. Yeah.
And there are guys that David Thompson has crossed that threshold, right? He's gotten his Undaunted series is selling a lot, a lot.
Well, it's a nice crossover.
It is a great crossover. It's perfect, and more credit to him. And it can be done. I think that's proof that it can be done.
Actually, he had another mainstream game that either just released or it's getting ready to release. That Sniper Elite was based off a video game. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, the Kickstarter on that one I think is actually delivering now or getting ready to deliver. So he's had a lot of bigger names.
Yeah, and if you can get an IP attached to your board game, that's a big, big plus, right?
It could be both. Positive and a negative, because depending on what the IP is and what the limitations are and what the expectations are, and if the game play falls flat, that can, it's a risk. It is a risk.
I think it's a big plus for you.
You get a boon because you get the people that are, I want that game, because I'm a fan of the video game or whatever.
Yeah. The Academy Games, they got Stellaris.
Right? Stellaris,
Huge video game. And I did a couple of base videos on that, and I talked to Uva about it, and I was like, look, I know I don't have to offer because you've got like big names coming out of the woodworks over something like Stellaris, but I still worked with him on a little bit. But that's going to make or break Academy games, because if it comes out poorly, he'll never recover, because no one will let him live it down, because there's so many expectations for that game.
Well, he got burned with Agents of Mayhem pretty badly, I think.
I hate that, because I actually like that game.
Yeah.
Right. I thought he did well on it. For some reason, it just did not sell. But part of what burned people is they still haven't delivered yet on that solitaire AI module for it. I don't know whether they delayed it, whether something got caught up. Maybe they were working on something else. They didn't have time. They spread themselves too thin, whatever it was. But by not delivering that, I think that hurt them as far as Agents was concerned. But the mechanics were great. They were solid, nice. The components were top quality, which is exactly what you would expect from Academy Games. They always have very nice components. Did you ever see the game? Did you ever try it?
I've never tried it. I remember seeing it Origin set up. I mean, it's an impressive looking game, definitely.
Yeah, the 3D terrain was excellent. When it came to like a miniatures game that could actually scope it out using the cardboard and the little screw together posts, it's beautiful. It worked great and it looked great on the board. I loved it. I thought it far undersold what it should have, but like I said, I think that solitaire module kind of burned them, because a lot of people were upset that never delivered.
Yeah.
You can't do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I paid for it and I still haven't got it, so I understand why people are upset.
Right. And John, here's a good point with John, right? About, $50 games, we're happy to kind of almost take what we get, and we're happy to download a PDF of the rules and have it be updated and have living rules and all those sorts of things. But when you start plopping down, and as games become more expensive all the time, $200, $300, $400 for a game, it needs to be better than 95%. Right. I just think it does. It was interesting when Mark Herman was commenting about how accurate things were. I kind of said to him, I said, well, a third of your counters are information counters. So
the Six Sigma stuff.
You can't. He was talking about Six Sigma, right? I said, well, you can't call your account as 99% accurate when a third of them are just information counters, right? So we're going to look at what's of those, and now we're talking about a 5% error, right, or a 7, or whatever it was. All de minimis to the actual value of the game and the game play. It just made people upset because they dropped down 80 or 90 or $100. And that's one of the things I said to Jack. I said, dude, you're asking people to pay $225 for 2,400. Is it 2,400? Yeah, 2,400
counters. Yeah.
I kept saying 1,400 and he yelled at me. There's 2,400 counters. And so it's got 2,400 and 4 maps, and they're oversized maps, and, all this sort of stuff. I was like, well, yeah, but, it's also not a full color rule book, and it's not, there's not lots and lots of color examples. There's no example of play flow. The charts are great, beautiful charts and all that sort of stuff. But all this little stuff, if you want to be answering questions for the next 20 years, you need to be happy to do that or fix it.
Yeah, rule books need to have those examples of play, especially if they can make illustrated examples, because that will ease a lot of learning curve, because you could see it. You're like, oh, now it makes sense, because a lot of people are visual, and they'll say, okay, text-wise didn't make sense, but visually it does.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I hate those rule books that will do the example of play, but it's just a paragraph, but then they'll reference the hex number on the board. And it's like, if this unit's at hex 3344 and this unit's at hex and I'm like, okay, well, let me pull out the map and figure out where those hexes are, or you could include a picture and just be done with it.
Yeah, I was comparing it to Jaws of Victory, actually, because it's the same battle, right? That's what I was trying to think of earlier. Jaws of Victory has much better examples of play, but the rules are 3-column and tiny print and dense, and actually way harder than Course on Pocket is. So it's kind of like, which one would I prefer to read? And it was actually more Jack's kind of verbose,
really
folksy style, because despite the extra words, the game's simpler to play than Jaws of Victory, or whatever it's called. Anyway, sorry.
Examples of play are always important, but especially if you're coming up with a system that's fairly unique, that nobody's seen before. You really need a good example of play, because people are going to have trouble grokking that just by reading it.
Right.
Well,
You know,
the one thing I wanted to
I remember reading rule books for some games, and after I got done reading them, I remember reading one on a plane flight. I won't say which one. Read the whole thing on a plane flight, and I got done, and I was like, I have no idea how to play this game. I had no idea what was going on.
Right.
I had no feeling for it at all.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it depends on, a couple things. Number one, first thing I was going to say was, people that are bitching about errata in war games, there's errata in pretty much every game out there. I mean, look at some of these Euro games that are 2 to 4 pages. There's errata in them too. They don't call them errata. They just call them corrections or changes or whatever. But if you have a change into 2 to 4 pages of rules for a pretty simple Euro or hobby game, expect the more complex the game gets, the more there's going to be a chance for an error in there. So we do have to understand that. The other is, it depends on the style of rulebook. Like you said, you read the rulebook on the plane flight, and at the end you're like, I don't know how to play this game. It doesn't make any sense. Some are more narrative style, and then others are just following the sequence of play, saying, here's the steps for the sequence of play. And the sequence of play is what really is the big driver to get you on the table, sitting down and reading it. And that's where a sequence of play, again, a thing that can be overlooked. Errors on the sequence of play and the player aid cards are so key, because if you don't have that nailed down, then it can break the entire game right off the bat, or make it difficult to play, not break it necessarily.
Yeah, I learned that.
And having the rules references.
Write your rules in the sequence.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And have the rules references on the charts. So when you're showing the fire results table, have the fire combat rules reference there. Rule 6.0 combat, right? There's all those little things that when I pay a couple $100 for something, I'm kind of expecting that you're going to not hold my hand, but you're going to at least make the experience worthwhile, right? If I'm going to have to do the work to learn this monster game and all these with all these counters and all this stuff, it better be approachable. Right.
Fred goes, think Disney Plus series. They have 1,000 loopholes, and this year's their multi-million-dollar company.
They're a multi-billion.
That's true.
Yeah.
The bottom line, Kev, is I want my games to be played. I don't want them to sit on somebody's shelf. So when you were talking before about accessibility and easy, I want people to play the game. Just buying it is not enough for me. I want you to be enjoying it. So. And then those are my favorite posts when I get from people. When they tell me they're enjoying my game, that makes me very happy. I've learned that accessibility is a big part of that. That's why a lot of the games I do are simpler. I'm trying to always dumb down. No, I don't want to say dumb down, because that's. I'm trying to make
saying we're dumb,
simpler and simpler to play.
Yeah. Are you saying you're smarter than all of us, Herman? Is that what you're saying?
It's exactly what I heard.
No.
I'm trying to make it accessible for Kev because he's a dumbass. A notorious dumbass.
Says the man who's playing 2,400 counter games. I can't do that.
1,400. Oh, no, wait. There are 2,400.
No, wait. That was 2,400. Yeah.
See, now, one of the games that I need to get again, because I had it and then I unfortunately gave it someone to try and it never came back. Invaders from Dimension X. Which is I don't know if anybody else is in the audience has played it, but if you want a game that you're going to just like, you feel like you're in the 50s, like a 50s sci-fi movie, and you're like, okay, I got this, man. I got this. No, I don't. What the hell? It's random chaos, and it's so much fun. That whole awesome Dimension X thing that you got going there. That's a great series. I forget the 50-foot colossi and that, and then the space vermin, all those. It's just so much fun.
So much fun. Can you redo those?
Planet of Doom.
Can you redo those and repackage it in a box? Yes. Because I played that a couple of times. I really enjoyed it. I think I had a whole swag of those Tiny Battles games, and I was like, you know what? It's all just messy looking, and at that time the counters were kind of thin, and so I just sold it all off. That needs to be in a box. It's a great system. You need to.
Yes. Thank you. Do it. And that's going to happen. Mark and I have already planned. We're going to do a deluxe version of all of those together. Bigger hexes, bigger counters. All that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Dead Reckoning too. We need to do Dead Reckoning.
Early Tiny Battle reminds me of early Victory Point games, right?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
It almost follows the same evolution. And and the great thing about Tiny Battle, is that I can do Invaders was an experimental game. You can do game designs and throw them out there. As people may have heard me say before, that was Invaders was designed on a dare by Jeff McAleer from the Gaming Gang, who, he said, hey, you do a lot of games with chaos. Why don't you just do a game that's total chaos? And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And Invaders is meant to be fun. And like I said, thank you. That's right. I met, yes, that was the Armchair Dragoons. If you're not having fun playing games, you're doing them wrong. I'm sorry.
Right.
And Invaders was just meant to have a good time with, and really even in magnificent style, you're not going to win. It's just to have a good time with, enjoy it. Dawn of the Zeds was originally designed it's a zombie movie. You're going to get killed. It's going to be impossible, but you're going to laugh while you're doing it, So that's really the premise of a lot of my games, is just have a good time.
Well, second edition Dawn of the Zeds I think that was the ultimate version.
Thank you. I agree with you. That's my favorite version.
The third was the ultimate as far as the ultimate amount of content. But the second one was the one that you could sit down, plop down on the table and say, all right, I got this. And then you're like, I'm dead again. Let's restart. That was the fun of it. And
and that's the whole thing. See, if you're going to have a game that you die quickly, you want to be able to start over, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to do this again right away.
Yeah.
And I think second edition got that perfect balance of being able to do that, but enough depth, right?
Yeah.
And third edition, look, most people know already, I had really nothing to do with the third edition. The third edition is all my previous stuff thrown in a box, and then Alan Emmerich and his crew did all the co-op stuff and added all the other stuff. So I've told people on Board Game Geek and elsewhere that I really want to do another Zeds game going back to the second edition and redoing one with a new theme, a post-apocalyptic theme, basically a generation after the events of Dawn of the Zeds. There's now a new
Day of the
place,
Zeds,
and it's more of a post-apocalyptic theme, but go back to the mechanics from the second edition, the approachability of the second edition. So if you want to sit with your, wife, husband, kids, and play for 2 hours on a Saturday night, you can do it now. The third edition, you can't really do that. It's too much, right?
Yeah.
And I've had Nancy's daughter buy a copy of the third edition and call me up and go, I can't play this. There's too many rule books, right? She was totally intimidated by it.
Well, even the setup can be a little confusing. You're like, okay, which one do I set up and how do I set this up? Whereas Dawn of the Zeds second was pretty straightforward.
Right. I want to get it back to that and make it a co-op experience or solo experience right off the bat. Just, baked right into it. Not that it's an add-on or anything, just baked right into it. I'd like to change the combat system a little bit and make it a little bit more modern, maybe with custom dice rather than an actual CRT.
Oh my God, Gimpy, calm down. Custom dice, Gimp.
Custom dice and miniatures. Now, what I want to see you do is I want to, if you've not seen this movie, I want you to watch this movie and then make a game out of it.
You're going to say Train to Busan?
No, Train to Busan was fantastic. Don't get me wrong.
I thought you were going to say Train to Busan.
Dog Soldiers.
Gimpy's pointing frantically over there.
What?
He's muted, I think.
Are you muted?
You're muted, Gimp.
You need to unmute yourself.
Uh-oh.
All we can hear is your mustache. Your beard or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's you. It's you, man. Yeah, shit is right. You have shit headset.
Expletive deleted.
Exactly.
Dog Soldiers. Is it on Netflix? Can I?
I don't know if it's on any streaming. I'll have to look. But basically, what it is it's a British movie. Oh, I hear echoes.
Uh-oh.
You got me now?
Now we got you.
Okay.
Plug it in. It works better.
Yeah.
But it's
sometimes you just gotta take it in and out.
So this British squad of troops is out training, and they're supposed to be like the bait for this like Delta Force type SAS guys that are out there, and they're carrying blanks, and they just think it's going to be just a regular war game. Well, they're moving along, and then they run into this team who's completely decimated, and they have live ammo there, and their bodies are just strewn everywhere. And there's one guy, his stomach's ripped open, and they save him. And they basically like he goes, there was only supposed to be one of them, and you're like, one of what? And then next thing you know is werewolves are chasing them through the woods, and they're falling back, doing like bounds as they're falling back and shooting at the thing, and then they end up in a house, and then they're besieged all night by these. There you go, right there. They're besieged all night by this group of werewolves, and it's pretty cool because in the movie, there's the guy who wrote all these extra lines or added all these cool lines into the movie with these really colorful characters. Like one of the lines from Wild Geese, when the corpsman, he's got all those guys that are coming at him with machetes. It's like, come on, you beauties. Well, this guy Spooner or whatever his nickname is, they just call him Spoon.
Great.
And he's like, come on, you beauties, as they're chasing him, like that. And then he gets into a fist fight with the werewolf. Spoon is the best character in the movie.
Yes, he is.
And he gets into this fist fight with a werewolf that is just awesome. And at the end, right before the werewolf kills him, he's got him up. He's got him pinned against the wall. And he just defiant till the last. He goes, I hope I give you the shits, you wimp. And he spits his gum in its face. You have to see it. It's just awesome. Right. It's fun. It's got plenty of action. Great werewolves. Kevin McKidd from Rome was in it. So you'll know some of the guys are in it.
Okay.
Good cast. It's
well, Ted knows if Mark is listening to this, he's already writing down a suggestion for me to do this.
Mark's watching this too? Yeah. He'll love the movie because it's kind of like Aliens meets a werewolf movie, and it's just so much fun. It's a great movie.
I'll look for it. Yeah.
It actually sounds like a scenario for The Long Road.
It does. I know. It's just
kind of
the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that would make a great movie. Just siege in a house and you're fighting these werewolves.
A great game, you mean? Yeah, a great game.
Yeah, or a great game, yeah.
If anything, he's understating it right now. The movie is that good. You got to do it. Dawn of the Wolves or whatever, 4th edition. That's what you're going with.
You can do the whole thing. You're in the woods.
As soon as
we're
done with this, I'm watching it. Like, you got me back into it. I'm watching it as soon as we're done with this.
If they got those good quotes, it would be great to use that as flavor text on the cards.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah,
absolutely. There's a lot of great little lines in it. And the other thing that I liked about it, because I'm a big fan of this in horror movies, and I love werewolves, and they're not done right in most movies, in my opinion.
Yeah,
they did not use CGI. They used practical effects, which is huge. And they had dancers wear the suits because they had them on stilts, because they have the canted chicken leg type thing, like dog legs, And they had them when you see the full body shots, you see them moving, and it's like, oh wow, they actually look like wolves on 2 legs. They're pretty scary looking. I don't know. It's like, that's really cool. That's the way
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah. It's not the lame ass CGI that you see in every movie nowadays. Yeah. It actually looks awesome when the wolves coming like in through the door, climbing up on them, all that good shit.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know a lot of the new movies, the CGI is just awful. I mean, the 80s.
Oh, Amazon Prime's got it. I know what I'm doing after the show.
Oh, does it? Oh,
yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. $2.99 to rent it. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
No, don't rent it. Buy it. You see it once, you want to watch it again. Okay. This is not a rent movie. This is a buy movie.
All right. Now I need to get the rights to it.
Yeah, that would be. It's
a corny awesome B movie. Who is it? Like IFC or somebody?
I think so. It's actually, I think they've even got it. You can buy it or rent it on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can find the different scenes. I want to see if I can get any of the what other scenes they've got here that you can see on YouTube. But yeah, it's just good stuff. But going back to the errata for a second, because we kind of got off the topic of that going into this. But now this is something I'll say to everybody else. It's like, if everyone feels like Jester, I had said this to him on his show, I'll say it here as well. If you feel that strongly that there should be no errata in games, then you can either sit on the sidelines and chirp, or you can get involved. And that's the best way I think for us to make sure that we have better games is find a game, a designer or a company that you want to be involved with, and step up and get involved. That doesn't mean you have to do the entire project yourself, but, help proofread or help play test or something, because, bitch or get involved, and if you want to sit there and just, bitch from the cheap seats,
even simple
it's easy.
Proofreading is really valuable, because I can't tell you how many times you read, you'll read a page and you'll go through it, or proof reading counters is the worst for me. Like, I can look at I've looked at things a dozen times, passed it 4 or 5 times, and still I find something on the 6th time that I missed.
Personal bias. You know what it should say in here.
Absolutely.
Seeing it translate from the eyes up to the
That's
head
a
is where it
right, and
goes.
that's a real thing.
Mhm.
You're right, where you're scanning it, and especially if you're the designer or the developer, you know what it's supposed to, and you just pass through it.
Mhm.
You're right. It's almost like your brain puts the correct information there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah.
They even have those phrases you can read that'll be out of sequence, but you'll still be able to read it because your brain corrects it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How important has Vassal been for you, Herman, when it comes to play testing for people and using that as a means to like double check scenario setups?
Well,
and stuff
personally,
like
I don't use Vassal. I use Tabletop
Simulator. Tabletop Simulator. Either. Yeah.
Yeah, Tabletop Simulator has been invaluable to me. I can't even tell it. So David Thompson's actually the one who told me about it. And he says, Herm, you should really do your kits on there. I find it like so easy to use and so valuable. So I was like, I'm not good at this stuff. I can't design mods. Well, the beauty of Tabletop Simulator, it's actually really easy to use. Once you get in there, it's actually everything flows really naturally. So now I do all my playtesting and all my kits on. I haven't built a physical kit in a year. Everything's on Tabletop Simulator. Fantastic. And the great thing about that is it takes a little bit of effort to get the games set up, but once you got them set up, editing them is like in play while Fred and I are playing. And that's another great thing about Vassal or Tabletop Simulators. I can play test with Fred or Harvey or Mark or any of these guys long distance, and we're doing it constantly. And as we're playing, if I find a counter that's wrong or a rule I want to change, I can just go down to my files, fix it, and stick it in the game as I'm going.
Fantastic.
No more printing out, like Kev was saying before, where you had to send a new file and you got to print it out every day or every other day. Now with
so
digital.
With a publisher, you got to do that. Like here, send this to the artist, and then you got to do multiple versions and all that. But when you're playtesting, on TTS, you're just doing it in real time. Which makes playtesting so much better because you're doing a physical kit. I don't have to build all new cards or build cut out new counters and all that. It just gets put into the program.
Yeah.
That's when Chester and I play on Tabletop Simulator, we make fun of they got to change that stupid theme song they play all the time.
Yeah, it is a little catchy, isn't it? It kind of sticks in your head.
Not catchy after the 100th time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and with the digital stuff, it does make the testing easier. Now, one of the other things to do is when you feel it's done, that's when you say, hey, anybody want to proofread a rule book, and say, you know what? I want you to proofread the rule book in 2 ways. Number one is first pass, just read through it. Don't try to dissect the rules. Just read through it. See what jumps out at you. This is what I'll end up doing the first time. I'll read through and I'll read it kind of semi-slow, but I'll just be like, I'm looking for anything that jumps out as that word doesn't belong there. That's wrong, grammatical structure, whatever. And then after I do that, then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to read the rules for what they're supposed to be and see if they make sense. The first time I look for the things that stick out that it's like, wow, that's kind of worded wrong. Then I may go, all right, now let me read. Maybe I need the context. And then you kind of can dissect it a little deeper. But a 25 page rule book, you can look through in an afternoon. So that would be a valuable piece of impact, input that the designer and the development team could use, especially latter stages. But of course, the final big thing to do is blind playtest.
Right. And blind playtesting is the most important step you can take, right? Where I just send you the game. I have no input into how to interpret the rules or how to play the game. You're just doing it based on the components in the rule book. And tell me what you find. And and it's invaluable. I mean, I've learned that over the years. And you want to get outside of your little group of people, right? And I know there's a lot of companies out there that just have like that little group that that infectious little group that just keep testing the same guys, same stuff, and you get so into his head now that even the developers are making the same mistakes as the designer makes. Right. They're already in sync, right? Yeah, you got to send it out to people who've never seen it before.
That's a really good point, Herman. I was watching 4 guys play Lace Wars. It's a Canadian company, I think, and it's one guy and 4 buddies who are his developers and play testers. So they all get it, right? That he's now got several modules out. But I was watching the guys play, and they said, "Oh, there's a great game in here, but man, is it clearly not developed for prime time for anyone beyond the 5 of them or whether it's 5 or 10, I don't know how many it is, but it's a certain number of guys that have obviously understand the game and understand the rule systems, but they had to work really hard to get progress through the system. So it's interesting.
And some people would say, well, why is Fred your main developer for all these years? Well, the great thing of having Fred is a great devil's advocate game breaker, because he knows that's not that he has a job to do. This is what he likes to do. Is that I'll show him. As a matter of fact, we're playing now. I got a new game coming out with White Dog on the Battle of Königsgrätz, which was the Austro-Prussian War. And I designed it, I put it all together, and then I presented it to Fred, and I said, all right, let's get on TTS and try this out. And his first thing is he tries to break it right away. He'll do stuff that might seem arbitrary and might seem illogical, but the thing is, will the system handle it, right? If you do something dumb, will the system punish you for it? If you do something ahistorical, is there some way to remedy that? Is there a way to, will it fit the history or not? So, a guy like Fred is good because he understands what his job is. Not the yes man, right? He's not there to just say, yeah, Herman, this is wonderful, just put it out there. He will actually try to break it. And that's, to me, that's invaluable. That's step 1 right there.
Manzo proofing.
Yes, Manzo proofing.
That's true. If you get somebody that's good at that and knows how to do that and can look at the rules, and you can see the wheels start turning the minute they look at the rules, you're like, okay, if I do this, I could break it here, maybe I could break it there. They're trying to figure out where the holes are in the game, they're looking for the exploits in the software, basically.
And
they're not looking for.
He's never gotten sucked into that whole thing. Well, I'll just be part of the team and we'll pump out these games. He knows what his function is when we do this is to make my life miserable and have me rewrite rules.
Herman thought he was hiring a ego stroker, and he's got a ball buster.
You make it, I break it. That you need to make that shirt for him. Yeah, Manzo proofing. You make it, I break it.
That's what you need, though, right? Because when you put it in the hands of thousands of people, there's going to be some dumb schmuck out there that's going to do something stupid with the game. So you got to test all those possibilities before it gets into the general populace.
Like Kev was saying before, you run into those really smart guys who are real rules lawyers and know they'll play in the game just to find that one rules interpretation they can get away with. And so, I try to design a game that you can't do that.
I hate playing with guys like that, dudes that will get down into the minutia of the timing of the specific phases, and a lot of that's like combative, like miniatures games, think like X-Wing or something like that, right? And they'll get into the timing, like, no, that this step happens here, and they're not doing it to like actually try to be specific with the rules, but to try to screw over their opponent.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I've run into a few
bunch of guys playing a kill team tournament, which is a Warhammer miniature skirmish game, and these guys are sitting there with laser pointers like this, right? Trying to look through the model wall's window to see if this laser will go
see
through
part of his eyeball. So I've got line of sight.
I'm like, guys, this is not what gaming is supposed to be.
No.
Wow.
You look down, that's the good thing about miniatures. You can get down eye level with the model and you go, it can barely see the side of his head. So I'm going to call it, no, I don't have a clear shot. That's how fast it should be. You say, you know what, dude, you have his head completely silhouetted in the window. You want to adjust that or not? Because I'm going to take a shot at him.
And that's why I despise tournaments. Because to me, tournaments ruin the reason you play games.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this to you before, but my brother had that happen at a 40K tournament where the dude that he was playing, the dude was like stomping everybody. And my brother started paying attention to him during his game and noticed that whenever he needed a specific roll, he would reach for certain dice. And
Oh.
he called over a tournament operator and it's like, hey, come here for a sec. And Matt grabbed the dice away from the guy real quick. The guy got all uppity. He's like, roll the dice. I guarantee you they're rolling 5s and 6s.
Mhm.
Dude rolls the dice and yep.
Weighted
Guy
dice.
had brought
Wow.
weighted dice. But he had screwed the tournament because this was something like the 4th round in. Right. And you know how the tournaments operate, it dictates what position you're playing. So
Right.
by him cheating, you know, first, second, third games, he had thrown off the whole tournament. I mean, of course they kicked him, but those other people couldn't really be compensated that he had screwed over earlier in the game. And,
Right.
and what a $20 gift certificate or $50, whatever the hell prize was. Really?
Wow.
You know?
Little 4-wall counseling out back. That's what that guy needs.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
there
I
was
don't
a
know. I don't know if
guy
you see
back
my
in the
brother. He's
third-
bigger than me. He was in the Marines just like I am, and
Yeah.
you know, pretty cock swole. He's not a guy I would cheat at a table. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah,
There's a
go
guy
ahead,
back in the 70s. It was a friend of mine who liked Russian campaigns so much. He ruined it for me because he played it constantly because he was in tournaments. So he just ruined the game for me because I couldn't play him anymore. It was like opening chess moves, you know. It's like, all right, you lose. That's it, you know. Wait a minute.
I can't stand that.
Recreating the Eastern Front of World War II here. What happened?
Then it's like a Euro. It's like, okay, it's optimized puzzle. It's like, nah.
No, I can't stand that.
I explore.
That's how I got back into got started with Vassal was with TRC, right? I was playing all these guys, and they would just do these moves, and the game would be over by June 41.
Yeah.
You can't. By the way, you can't win, Kevin. What do you mean? No, you're done.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, thanks.
So,
That's where you get it and you play it solitaire and you can enjoy it.
Because I always win then, right? Heathwell had a good comment.
Yes, he did. I was going to go back to that. Thank you for reminding me. Hathwell saying, question, especially in historical warfare-based games, how much does a design lean on the player's shoulder, knowing the theme and the warfare of the era to process the rules? That's a good question because, you were talking about Napoleonics and stuff like that, and ACW. Somebody like, that doesn't play those types of games on average, how much knowledge do they have to have of the era to be able to absorb the rules? Or can it be something that maybe a first-time war gamer or somebody with no experience in those eras, can they pick it up?
Yeah, I think that depends obviously on the complexity of the game, right? So if you're doing great battles of what's the Civil War, great campaigns of the American Civil War, whatever. I mean, a lot of those, they really dig into the deep details. Now, I guess it's always an advantage to know something about the era. I mean, as a designer, I like to do obviously the eras that I know. I don't do modern warfare. I don't know that much about. And I've been asked to do modern games. I refuse to design them. I don't know anything about them, and I'm not going to do the research. There's just too much.
Yeah.
Same thing with ancients. I just don't know that much about it. So as far as absorbing rules, I would say it probably helps. I think you're already in that mindset, so you can grab certain terminology, maybe tactics that are explained in the rules. You'll adapt to them right away, whereas maybe something might be really foreign to you. So yeah, I think it definitely helps. Obviously, the simpler the game, the easier it is to get into it, regardless of. But if you're talking about
the way you write the rules and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, for you as a designer, do you expect, or do you design with the intent that someone who plays it has already a vested interest in it and a background in it, or are you going to write it in a way where anybody can pick it up despite their?
Yeah, I did at the beginning, and I took a lot for granted that somebody would know something about, and then I learned when people were feeding back to me and said, wow, I never played an ACW game. I played Blind Swords, and now I've learned something. And I go, wait, well, that's right. I'm actually supposed to be designing these to get people interested in it.
Right.
Now, that I actually avoided that with that at any cost. I knew already that a lot of people didn't know anything about the Franco-Prussian War. So when I designed that, it's extra wordy, that's why that whole playbook is basically just a history of what the Franco-Prussian War is, what the tactics were like, and how they relate to the game directly. So there's actually colored boxes after the historical passage. I'll have a box in there that says, in the game, this is reflected here. So that I already knew consciously would have to be a teaching thing at any cost. But you're right, with the ACW. With the ACW stuff, it was more of I assumed everybody knew, and then I kind of realized, well, maybe people don't, especially people in Europe. A lot of people in Europe, right, don't know a lot about the details of the American Civil War. So then I realized that there's an audience there that needs to learn all this. So yeah, I did change my ways.
I hate to tell you, Herm, but then I'm gonna butcher A Most Fearful Sacrifice because I know jack and shit about the Gettysburg battle. Like, I know it took 3 days. I know it was the Union fighting the Confederates, but that's about where my knowledge ends. So there's not going to be any historical battle going on. I'm just going to move them all over the board. And
well, the scenarios are already formatted to fit whatever the history was for that particular scenario. So you're already starting off, in the right spot. So once you play from that point on, you don't have to follow any history. You just play to your best ability.
I'm just going to push the Confederates towards the most important victory point hexes. I figure that's my best bet.
Okay.
I think that's what they tried to do too, except they had some wonky leadership. So
well, it's not going to change then.
Just run up the middle, man. Just run up the middle.
Yeah. Hey, so Herman, do me a favor. If you do a Napoleonic series, please don't start in the peninsula.
Don't start what?
Don't start in the peninsula.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it is with every series, but every new series, like, I'm just going to start in the Peninsular Wars. Like, and you know what? How about you start with a battle? And even if it's a larger battle, I know that makes it harder to get it all kind of right. But
I wouldn't start in the Peninsular War anyway, because when we played miniatures, I painted the French, and my friend had the British, and he kicked my ass every time we played.
Perfect.
Oh, God.
But give us Eylau or Borodino or Austerlitz or something. And let's do the battles that aren't well covered.
Yeah, I mean, one of my personal favorite games is Leipzig. I like Leipzig because it fits multiplayer mode very easily. It's a good battle to do with 4 people, so I always use that as a learning thing. That and Napoleon's Last Battles, the Waterloo campaign one. So.
Oh, sure.
What do you say? Consider the movie Gettysburg a training film? Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's your basic training film right there.
I love that movie. God,
they got the high ground. Yeah, it's good stuff. But great cast. Great beards.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, great fake beards.
I hate to say it, but I don't think I've seen it. Sorry.
What? How could you not seen that?
You know what? I know he's joking, but it is actually a good place to start. I think the scenes in that movie and the acting is top notch. I think they did a good job with it. I mean, as far as representing a historical battle compared to some of the other movies out there, that one's really top notch. That one in Waterloo, the one with Rod Steiger.
Is his last name Chamberlain and the middle name Bayonets? Best part of that movie, best scene right there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what's the Civil War movie that has Morgan Freeman and
Glory?
Ferris,
Glory.
Ferris Bueller? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the last one
good.
that I've seen.
That was really good.
I like that one. I don't know which battle that was, but I like that movie.
It was late in the war.
South Carolina?
I was down there somewhere. I forget exactly.
Yeah, that was a real good movie. That was a real good movie. And you read the real story, it's even better. So, and that was tough. That whole situation. And it was literally what happened. Just charged in, and his guys were with him, and he led the charge.
That just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Just straight up the beach. I've run on beaches. It's not fun.
You ever heard of the island hopping campaign? Straight up the beach. Little thing called D-Day. Straight up the beach.
Fair point. Tarawa.
Amphibious assaults are amphibious assaults throughout history. So.
I guess that is a fair point. Hey, A Most Fearful Sacrifice Part 2. There you go.
Fort Fisher, is that what it was? Okay.
Someone in this audience would know, yeah.
And is it? He said Glory's good to go. Fort Wagner.
Now we got conflicting reports.
Fort Wagner. Which one is it?
We got 2 for Wagner.
All right, Wagner it is. But yeah, no, that is a great movie. But again, what other last things do you guys have to add in for errata in games? Your input there, Gimpy?
For me, I just think that there's a fine line that a publisher designer can take in between too much work at it, too much playtesting, too much time spent on it. I think Academy Games kind of goes in that direction where they don't want to release until it's absolutely perfect.
How did I know you were going there?
Hey, it's
5 to 7 months or 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, you got to give it to them, though. I mean, you don't really get a whole lot of errata out of them, right?
True.
Or many games.
Or games, yeah.
And see, that's the drawback, is that it takes them forever to release.
Yeah.
And then there's the one where the designer publisher spends too much time in-house and they don't get it in front of strange eyes. It needs to be in front of as many people as possible that don't know it, that didn't write the rule book and aren't making a profit off of it per se. Otherwise it's just not going to come out right. More than a page, if you have more than a page of errata, you've done something seriously wrong.
I agree. You just ask people not to be careless. You ask publishers not to be careless with it, right? Take some due diligence and
yeah.
Kev? Yeah, I think I would say two things. So one, let's have high expectations from the publisher and the designer that they do their best to mitigate errata, and then finally that we make sure we set our sense of entitlement to one side and participate in the exercise if we find problems or have an opportunity to help.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because the sense of entitlement has it's permeated every aspect of life, and we're demanding perfection of others while not giving perfection of ourselves. And I think that's something that people need to remember when we're paying good money for these games. Don't get me wrong, anywhere from $40 to $100, $200, $300. You have to understand, though, it's still a product made by human beings, and humans are prone to mistakes. We all make mistakes. And if you feel that, passionately about something, and you feel that strongly that this shouldn't happen, well, get involved. I'm sure there's plenty of companies out there that would love to have developers. I know Legion Wargames put out a thing all the time saying paid development slots. You want to pick up a few bucks and you want to get involved in games and have your input have an impact on others, well, get involved. That's the best way to do it, like you were saying, Kev. So if you have a passion about gaming, you care about it, you want to help the community and you want to make it better, then best way to do it is for everybody to get involved at some level. And everyone has skills that they can use that a publishing company would be happy to grab.
I think that's a good point that you made. I was going to say the same thing. I think people tend to forget that, we're human, the designers are human beings, especially in the war game industry. You're all basically mom and pop shops, right? I mean, very few exceptions. So, Mark's got his own life, Gene Billings, everybody's got their own lives, their own problems, their own, and it's not this big, Amazon corporation or something. These are small, in many cases, family-run businesses with a couple of employees, or maybe 3 or 4 employees. And I think genuinely everybody's trying their best. And like you said, humans make mistakes, and it can be overwhelming. Obviously, games like Most Fearful Sacrifice and others like that are huge projects that require a year of work. I mean, we worked on that actually over a year. So yeah, I mean, things are going to go off kilter once in a while. But you guys, wait, Kev said it right. We need to expect.
That's true. Kev said it right. We need to expect it's done as best it can be, but if there is an error, we need to not go overboard about it. We need to fix it and move on. And that is true, and then Kurt says another thing the companies need to do is temper the loud and angry few ones with those that genuinely understand errata happens. It's like anything else. The squeaky wheels get the grease. They're the ones, especially if you go on BGG, where it's an echo chamber of, angst and complaints, on a 24/7 basis. So that's why you just have to,
I got it. Yeah. I mean, there's some days I just sit here answering BGG questions like the entire morning,
soul-sucking exercise.
What's that?
It's a soul-sucking
exercise. Dear reader,
Well, Greg
Don't read the
had
damn
said
manual.
something. Greg said something earlier. He said he's literally been asked, does only one mean only one? And that's the type of questions you'll get at BGG.
True.
Does only one really truly mean only one? Or is it only one in the case of a full moon on the third Tuesday of, whatever, September?
Right.
What? It's come on, be realistic.
People really
BGG
read into
is
that
just not
verbiage.
the resource it was, right? Back
No.
in the day, it used to be a good resource, but it's just become this echo chamber of negativity now, and you don't feel good to even be on it anymore.
No, I agree. And Greg says, I think I made 0.006 cents per hour in designing Fall Blau. You don't do this for the money.
That's
That is
exactly
true.
right. That's
Very
exactly
true.
right.
And Herman answers BGG questions with grace and
Oh.
respect, which goes a long way. And that is
Well,
true.
Thank you. I
is
do
true.
try. I do try. I mean, I realize that a lot of this is interaction with the community, so I do try to be a good soul about that kind of stuff. I like I said before, I just want people to play my games, and if I'm at least responsive to them on Board Game Geek or wherever else on Facebook, it goes a long way to get people to play my games. So it's most
it's a
people are
small
not
community.
contentious about it. Some people, there are some on there that just drive me nuts, but it is what it is. When you're dealing with the public, that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fred says, I've had people, does only one mean one or only one beyond the first one?
Oh my gosh.
That's when you smack. It's like, you want a fresh one.
Well, it's like if you write any unit, right, can do this, and it's obviously meant for the one side, right?
Yeah.
Well, any unit, does that mean the other guy's units too?
It's like press the any key to continue. Where's the any key? But yeah, and the thing about it is that people have to remember gamers as well as designers. I know the designers are pretty acutely aware of it. So are the publishers. This is a very small community. We know the designers, we know the publishers, we know the content creators, we know the gamers, and everyone builds a bit of a reputation of varying types, whether it's a designer, hey, this guy is really good at this type of game. He's not as good at that type, or this is the type of game he creates really great narrative games, or this one is really crunchy into simulation. Same with the publishers. They get reputations for different things. And the gamers themselves, we need to remember that as gamers, our actions are seen by others at conventions, online, things like that. So don't be that guy, because there are some of that guys out there, and everyone knows who you are. So just remember, like Kev was saying, we need to dial back the sense of entitlement a little bit and be a little more understanding.
Yeah, they get very upset when you mention that they exist.
Yeah.
I think it was on this show a year ago that I got in a lot of trouble.
Yes, I do recall that.
I was not even
taken
on the
out of
show. I was only
context.
in the chat.
You were in the chat. It was your question in the chat, and they totally
Right.
took it out of context. There was no context at all in there, and I was just like,
man.
some people just want to create drama for the sake of drama.
Yep.
I mean, that's the world we live in nowadays. Some people just
Yeah.
look for that reason to be upset and offended.
That's why I think life should be treated like a hockey game. You have a problem, drop the gloves, chuck knuckles, and then sit down and ice your knuckles for 5 minutes, and you're good to go. Just continue on.
That, like Gimpy just said, that's the problem with the internet, obviously, and social media is you don't have to drop the gloves. You can just shoot off comments and never have to feel the consequences of it. So
Yeah.
Exactly, because people don't see each other face to face. They've lost that communication. They would never say it to your face, but they feel comfortable behind that computer screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're at a
That's why I like going to
discussion,
cons.
right? If you wanted to have a discussion with a designer or publisher at a convention, it's a totally different conversation, isn't it?
Yeah. And well, that's what happens when you got a bunch of friggin' gravy seals there. Meal Team 6, they all think they're tough guys and keyboard warriors, chairborne rangers and stuff. It's like
Meal Team 6.
Meal Team what?
Meal Team 6, the gravy seals. Meal Team 6. These guys are like,
oh man,
back in my special forces spooky 8 days, I was good at this stuff. And it's like, dude, you're 450 pounds. What are you talking about? You've never been below 380. So it's like, but but the thing about it is just be realistic about things and just don't be a jerk. But anyway, just get involved if you feel that strong about Errata, and just try to be better to everybody in the community and to the gamers, to the designers, to the publishers. And just remember that, mistakes happen. So if you want to make an impact, then get involved.
Yeah, and it's not a contentious relationship. You know, we're trying to make games that are enjoyable and perfect, and we want people to have fun and enjoy them. And it shouldn't be a conflict, right?
No, not at all. Conflicts are on the table.
I mean, I'm a game player too. I love playing games too and designing games. So we're all in the same boat here, trying to enjoy the hobby.
Yeah, but you know what, Brant? You can easily escape his reach.
Yeah,
you just walk at regular walking speed. You're good to go.
I felt bad today. I found out my 1.5-year-old's faster than I am. I put her down while we were at the doctor's office, and she just took off like a little bullet. I'm like, okay, I can get you. Hold on, I'm coming.
Need to get you one of those. What are those things that you stand on? Had the wheels, the hoverboards or whatever.
Hoverboard.
I couldn't ride one of those.
That's
no, I got to stay
mobile
mobile as possible. They talked about giving me one of those like mobile chair thingies at one point. I'm like, look, I don't want to do that, because at that point I'm just gonna blimp out. You know, be that 450-pound gamer. I want to stay moving while I can. Keep the belly slim.
You gonna do your Gravy Seals training?
Yeah, not heading there yet. I still got stuff I need to do.
Gravy Seals training at Camp McDonald's.
Was that in glory?
What fat people are you out, man? You're making good jokes over here.
He's more like a Burger King guy, I think.
Yeah, I do like Burger King. I like McDonald's too, but in moderation. In moderation. But anyway, that's pretty much covers everything for tonight, along with the sarcastic smack talk at the end. Have a little bit of fun with it, but appreciate everybody for tuning in. We're glad to finally get back. We're kind of Kev's, almost. I think you're pretty settled in your move now, right, Kev?
Yeah.
And I'm almost there. Hopefully, we'll get an offer on the house, and then we can close that out, and then move the rest of the stuff over here and get settled down there, and then get back to business. But appreciate everybody from tuning in.
Hold on. Wait for 1 sec. Brant, if you're still there, is that wargaming thing this Sunday? Because if it is, I'm out of town visiting relatives, but I might see if I can get back in time to swing by Gamers Armory on the way home. But yeah, let me know if you're still in the comments there real quick.
Well, we do have one question from Jester, and then but I don't see Jester stepping up
first Sunday
to get involved in any testing. So first Sunday of every month at Gamers Armory is the thing, so he will be there this weekend. But any last comments before we tune out here for the night?
Nope, not for me.
Nope.
If I could just say thank you to everybody for all the support. It's wonderful. More stuff coming. A lot of more stuff. I'm trying
Dawn of the Wolves. It's coming.
Dawn of the Wolves. The Night of the Werewolves.
Yeah, Night of the Werewolves. I like that one.
Yeah,
Go for that.
That'd be pretty badass. I definitely want to see
break, Joe Miranda's record of most games published in 1 year.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you, everybody.